Good day. I appreciate you tuning in. Mike Toddy, novice when it comes to the venture that we're trying to embark upon, looking for expert advice and input and recommendations. So let's start first off with intent. The intent is specifically for this video, the short video series, is some expert recommendations given the scenario that we're presented with as we stand here in spring of 2022, late May to be exact. So where I'm at it now with is working with the NRCS, the application, all things considered equal, and if they go as hopefully planned or we're able to work it, we'll be putting perimeter fence in, cost share programs, spring of 23. So we've got this year gap that I'm looking for your advice for to what to maybe how we can move forward, how we can incrementally improve the not only the property but maybe the process and the plan as we go forward. So I would like to reiterate that I'm a novice. I have some awareness of grazing. Originally looked into it as I was retiring from the service to potentially get into rotational grazing dairy farming. Took some classes through the Wisconsin the dairy grazing apprenticeship. So I have some knowledge, but I'm no grass expert. I can pick out a few. But here's my intent. I want to see some critters on this awesome grass, right? Looking at different breeds right now. Maybe North Devon is one of them, maybe some Angus, and potentially running some chickens in here as well. We've got chickens, a few meat chickens and layers on our home farm, which is about 5 or 6 acres of pasture. So we have a total of 80 acres here that we're working with, but only 30 of which are pasture or tillable, if you will. We're working to reclaim some of the field edges. We can probably get about 10 feet to 20 feet along the entire perimeter of each field that have saplings growing up, and we have permission of the landowner to reclaim some of the pasture. So as the situation sits now, specific to this property, let's go through the history for a short time. Past 35 to 40 years, it has been in CRP. It came out of CRP in the fall of 2020. It was potentially hayed within the past 5 years, but there have been no animals on it. It has not been row cropped. Specifically to the maintenance within the CRP program, I don't believe there was no chemical maintenance. Evidence shows that it was left and maybe hayed every once in a while. Last fall we came through here under the recommendation of NRCS to just knock down the grass that was here, as well as the pervasive goldenrod, which you'll see in the following videos where I do some up close in each pasture. So we got in here too late, to be honest with you. We were spreading goldenrod seed as we cut. So now we're in this position of what can I do now? What can I do in 2022 to have cows on here potentially in 2023? I'm working with the NRCS on the grazing management plan, and if that goes well, we're looking at the cost sharing programs. So we're kind of moving in that direction. Back to the property. I will try to include an aerial photo of this. It's unique. The 3 pastures, as I call them, they're broke up because, again, we have intermingled woods, swamp, etc. We have some low crossings, probably 2 at a minimum, if not 3, that need to be improved. We have a well. So it looks as evidence it was a hand-dug well generations ago. The owner knows some history of it, and there was casing put in. It looks like to be about 4-inch casing. Last fall I taped it and we hit water at 30 feet. I just taped it again today and I hit water at 24 feet, and I believe I got the depth all the way down to 54 feet. So I think we have a good amount of water there. The windmill itself is not a viable option. If the casing is in good enough shape, then I would potentially look at doing a submersible of a solar of some sort. But again, that's on the topic of water. It may be an option of some sort. Power, there is no power back here. And to get power back here would be very expensive, an option I may look into. But as of right now, we're operating on solar. We're off the grid. So in addition to the water source that resides in the well, there are a few springs on the property, which you'll see at least one of them in a follow-on video. That's At a high point, there's maybe some opportunities for some spring development with gravity-fed water, which I know can be I don't know if contentious topic is the right thing to say, but it can definitely be a topic where maybe there is some experience and maybe there is not some experience in regards to using it. Um, Regardless, we want to protect those springs, so we know we've got to get them fenced and we don't want cows in them, right? Nor the landlord or as I, the tenant, we want to see cows up to their bellies in the spring. So we're going to have to put a lot of thought and planning to make sure that we reinforce those areas to keep out. So for recap for water, we have this old well with casing looks in okay shape, to be honest with you, that has water at 24 feet and a potential depth of down to 55 feet. I don't know if that's a viable option. I just know there's water there. It was a windmill at one point and had a hand pump now, which is non-functional. We're off the grid. We have no power. So what we're looking ideally is what we're working with our NRCS is to develop the grazing management plan to include perimeter fencing and then rotational grazing, probably using some poly wire, crossing the paddocks. You know, the water is a challenge. We don't want water in one area, as you know. We're not trying to bring them back to the water that they hang around there in the hot days. We got to figure out how to get the water to the respective paddocks. We got to improve the lanes. And again, we're going to have to use some type of powered, solar powered fencing as well and pumping for the water. Sorry, I'm repeating myself a little bit here. So as we look at the soil itself, I have soil tests, which I'll share those results. Definitely low in pH in some areas. And as you can imagine, so there's no alfalfa in here, so nitrogen. Again, not being the expert of grass, it seems that we have a lot of brome grass and a lot of weeds, a lot of goldenrod. We got to keep down these saplings that have encroached upon the field. I went through and mowed those down last year. Like I said, I'm probably going to hit some of those woody areas potentially as early as this week to knock them down again. If I could snap my fingers, what is my ideal state? My ideal state is we get critters on this soil as soon as possible, right? Within reason. In the principles and desires for regenerative grazing, everything regenerates, but we're not regenerating row production land. You dig in the soil and it's cottage cheese looking. Ray Archuleta would love to see this type of soil. We did an earthworm test. We did not look up how to do it before we did it. I looked up after, but I basically did a square foot area, my daughter and I, and we were finding anywhere from 30 worms to 70 worms in a square foot area without really trying hard. So I believe this passes the initial eye test for opportunity. The geography and layout of the land and proximity where we're at definitely presents challenges. There are no fixed buildings, infrastructure on here. We'll probably have to do some lane improvement as we discussed. But we are set off the road. It is a blank canvas that can really be an awesome opportunity. We have the full support of the landowner. She's very excited about this opportunity. And again, if I had to return to my ideal state in a couple years, I'm not trying to put as many cattle as I can on here from a profit perspective and turning cattle. What is the right thing for the land is what I want to do. You know, which includes we planted some fruit trees. I want to do some pollinator habitat. Obviously, we talked about rotational grazing with beef cows. I would maybe like to run some meat as well as layers beyond them. We definitely know wildlife up here is a factor when we look at perimeter fencing. You know, if we go with a 4-wire versus a woven wire, and does the woven wire impede, wildlife? In regards to if you're trying to get that wildlife movement and keep that natural, or if you go with a 4-wire, are the deer going through it and it becomes a pain, right? Because we want to respect our neighbors. We don't want calves running around on other people's properties. We don't want them in the neighboring farmers' corn. So we're really trying to take a look at this canvas and figure out, we've got this great opportunity. It's been sitting here for 40 years. It definitely needs some TLC, but it's not desperate TLC. Rather, we need to help improve it by hopefully mimicking nature to a degree, right? I don't have that experience to do that. I have the ideas. I watch YouTube videos just like you do. Many of you existed before YouTube, so you have a lot more experience. But if I paint you the picture of cows grazing on that green grass and even better grass, that's what I want. I want to be able to improve this pasture and continue to develop and leave it in a better way than which we found it, which is in a great state, to be honest. Again, 35 or 40 years has not been touched, has not been tilled. And I have no desire to till. Maybe you guys will recommend differently. You know, we have challenges of those woody species in the ground. And, you know, maybe do mechanically come in and till it. The desire is to maintain, use no chemical. And that's really the struggle that I'm in now. You know, we looked at doing some interseeding this spring on our own without, you know, any of the cost share programs. We held off just because of the way this whole thing is turning. But where can I get this next year to where I can feel confident about interseeding a diverse mix, and then having the competition of these native grasses, but more importantly, these weeds and invasive species that have found themselves here, from choking that new growth out. My gut tells me we just need to get cattle out here, right? We got to get them in paddocks and we got to rotate them. But obviously there's other inputs as well and other considerations. So again, why am I turning to you as expert graziers, people that have experience, is that this is a blank canvas. I don't think this land needs as much healing as many other pieces of land that is involved in other production. In other videos, I'll actually dig up, I forgot my shovel, dig up and show you some of the soils. I do have soil tests. I will include that in one of the follow-on videos. There'll be a series of videos here. This is the introductory video, a long one at that. But I have a couple of shorter videos that are showing you the other pastures, up close pictures, video of the types of grasses, as well as where we need lane improvement, the well location, and a few other considerations as we look at it. So I know that without visiting the property, you may not be able to give 100% advice that you're confident in, but we're looking for ideas, and we're in the brainstorming phase, right? And when you're brainstorming, throw everything up, say no to nothing, take a look at it, collectively discuss it, and in this case, we're looking for the advice of other people, such as yourself, on how we can take it from what this is now, and specifically short term. There's long-term goals here, but for the short term is, what can I do this year? Because as we stand here, my plan is just to clip it this year. If I can't get cattle on it, to clip it, to keep the weed growth down, to keep it from coming in. I could be totally wrong, and I need you guys to tell me if I'm wrong. Getting someone else's cattle on here, I've looked at that. The concern is, of course, no fencing, and temporary fencing, and the effort to put all that into it, and yet you still have this concern about weather intervening and cows getting out. And I don't think anybody has interest to put pairs down here with calves running around. But what can I get out here? What can I do in the short term to regenerate this land and help us toward our longer vision of, 1 year to 5 years out from producing high quality, grass-fed only beef on this property, as well as some potential interaction and stacking with chickens. So again, I'm long-winded. I appreciate it. I know there's many things I have not said that you want to know. So I'd ask that you please reach out to me. You can call me at any time. Obviously, 920-246-1422, 920-246-1422. Potentially thinking about hosting a pasture walk and getting some different ideas here, because we've got the government programs in work. If we do that, I should state that that's not the given. That is one of the options for the cost share programs and the oversight of those programs, if you will. But if we can get some ideas from the experts, for those of you that have done it. So to recap, in a summary would be, we have water via well, an old well, some springs, no power, no current perimeter fencing, and it's come out of 40 years of CRP. Thank you very much, and again, we'll be adding other videos to give you more context specific to the layout of the land and the pastures. Thank you.